Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Today, we're going to be talking about zero trust. We all know that there's a lot of solutions out there that can help, but not only one solution can help achieve it. So, what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about zero trust and about how TruGrid can help. I'm going to hand it over to Peter, and he's going to be doing a 30-minute webinar for you with 15-minute presentation, about a 5-minute demo, and then we're going to open up for Q&A.
Thank you so much, Brandon.
Yep.
And thanks everyone for joining. Just a little bit about TruGrid. Figure we tell you about our company. We started this company in 2017 with the express focus of providing simplified access and device security to businesses and employees. As a result, we use cloud technologies to secure businesses and also to eliminate security gaps. Since 2018, we've actually won 4 industry awards. 2 of those awards are for most innovative solutions. That was in 2018 and 2019. And we also licensed some technology from Microsoft to simplify the work that we do. For those of you that we've met on different roadshows that we've done, you probably already know myself and Jennifer and Brandon. And we recently added 2 other members to our success team. And that'll be Melissa and Nick, and I'm sure you'll get to see them in the coming months. So to start, let's talk about what zero trust is. I think we have a little web survey on the board there. We'll be very happy if you can just answer those questions for us so we get a sense of those who are familiar with zero trust and those who are not. In its simplest form, zero trust is a security framework, this IT security framework that pretty much tells organizations not to trust anything inside and outside of their organization. And before I kind of explain to you some of the way zero trust can be applied to remote work or remote access, let me give you a couple of examples of what zero trust is in the common life. Today, almost everyone has an antivirus solution on their computer systems. And despite that, we can't always guarantee that we will not have infection. That is because most antivirus systems are very reactive in nature. A zero trust antivirus system will actually not allow anything to be downloaded to your computer until it's checked in an isolated container. Only when it's verified to be safe would you be able to use it. That would be an example of zero trust. Another example might be for email systems where you have an email gateway, and before the email actually gets into your inbox, the gateway will check any attachment. It will open it up in an isolated container, or even click any links in your email to make sure they're not destructive to your computer before the email comes through. That would be an example of zero trust. So when you apply zero trust to remote work, commonly you want to apply it to VPN, how VPN works. And the reason why that's important is because VPN, by their standard nature, they allow access, I would say trusted access between 2 locations, the remote user and the company network. So Gartner actually predicts that when people apply zero trust to VPN, by about 2023, over half of organizations will be replacing their current VPN in favor of a technology that actually does zero trust very well. That was actually a very shocking statistics to me that it is that recognized. Now, zero trust can be implemented in multiple different ways. For network access, one of the ways you do that is by actually authenticating people in the cloud and even devices in the cloud before granting access to the system itself. So for those who are not familiar with what zero trust is, that is essentially what it is. Okay, and again, it can be implemented for many different facets of IT. Okay, going forward, I'm going to talk about the common use for VPNs and the pros and cons. VPN is a great technology. It's been around for over 30 years, and it actually allows private connection between a remote worker and the office network over the public internet. And it does it very well. It does a good job. The challenge is that private connection implies a lot of trust, okay? So as a result, if not well safeguarded, it's actually not impossible for malware and viruses to jump between the remote worker and the office network. Now, a prime example of how that's been happening is especially given the issues that it was been going through in the last, I would say, 2 months, despite, given the COVID-19 situation. Many organizations are finding that they are having to allow or ask their employees to use the personal computers they have at home to connect into the office. And one common way that people do that is once they establish VPN connectivity, they now have to launch a remote desktop to connect to their PC in the office. So the challenge with that is we've talked to a lot of service providers that work with us that were trying to do this. And the challenge you run into is in trying to safeguard the computers of an employee at home using their personal computers not owned by the organization, they're having to install antivirus that meets the requirement of the organization. They're having to patch the home user computers. And you can imagine that's a monumental task for the company to now be taking ownership or be trying to patch employees' PCs that they don't own. And what if they break something in the process? What if they mistakenly delete some files? What about privacy for the employees? So you can imagine all these kind of complexities are some of the reasons why VPN is not going to be able to meet the test of time over the long period. While a very good technology, it is not well suited for the way people are using remote work today. Now let's talk about how TruGrid actually solves that problem. TruGrid has a technology called Secure RDP, and that technology is actually designed to implement zero trust for remote work. But the first thing it does is it doesn't use VPN at all. It does not rely on VPN. It uses a cloud technology based on Microsoft protocol Signal R. Okay. In doing so, it establishes connection between remote worker and the cloud before it gets to the organization. So there's always a cloud in between that guarantees that things are safe and secure before access is allowed. As a result of that, it is now possible for viruses and malware to actually jump between the remote worker and the office network. One of the highlights, which is the core principle of TruGrid, is also the simplicity and the time it takes to set up. It takes about 20 minutes to set up a TruGrid environment. And one of the features is we actually help hide the company firewall from being visible over the internet. And of course, for the users, we have a lot of integrated security that's part of the product, including multi-factor. And we also make sure that Active Directory is actually safeguarded from brute force. Okay, so I'm going to be able to show you some of that during the demo part. But for the next slide, I'm going to turn over to our CTO, Jensen, to take you through the architecture of our product. Jensen?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so we have tried to put a lot of thought into making things as secure as possible. So some of the key things that we just want to point out here, we're happy to answer other questions about it, is you don't have to open up ports in your firewall. MFA, we include by default in the setup. Actually, sometimes people actually ask us to turn off MFA, and we unfortunately can't do that. We don't believe it's safe for people to have just a login and password. So we try to keep things at a very high level of security. And you can get a new environment set up very quickly. So in under an hour, sometimes under 10 minutes, we set up new clients, and they're pretty shocked at how quickly they can get set up. Peter, I'll let you continue on.
Thank you, Jason. So since we're moving very fast and it's about 10 minutes into the presentation, that will give us enough time to for a lot of Q&A. So the next thing I'm about to do is kind of give you a demonstration of the environment. And for this demonstration, I'm going to give you a quick review of the environment. I'm going to show you how to assign, for administrators, how to assign a machine to an employee. And then I'll show you what the first time end user login looks like. And then I'll connect to a remote desktop using our technology, okay? To do so, let me quickly bring over the backend system. Okay, I hope everybody can see that server I just pulled up. So the backend environment, I just,
there it goes.
This is the backend environment. So the backend environment, as Jason was showing, has a component called Sentry. And that component actually is a very simple installation. As you can see, it is only about less than 12 megs. The download itself is only about 7 megabytes. And once it's installed, it creates two security groups in Active Directory. A TG.computer groups, which is where you can put machines in. It's right there. Currently, I have 3 machines in there. And a user group where you add all the users you ever want to allow access to. And here's one over here. So for this demonstration, I can actually add an existing user. But what I want to do is actually create a new user and actually show you how a user's provision from the beginning. So let me take an existing user and make a copy of it. Okay. I'm going to call this user Danny. Danny J. That's the login. And I'm going to give it a password. So now I'm going to make sure that user is added to the user group. And Danny is right there. So when Danny logs in, Danny will be logging in as DannyJ@easyrds.com. Okay. So now I'm going to pull up the admin panel to log in as the administrator and grant access to Danny. So let me put my multi-factor authenticator there. Now that I've logged into the environment, I'm going to go in and assign a desktop to Danny. So I'll find a machine. I want to give Danny access to this machine. And I'm going to find Danny here. That's Danny over there. I'm going to select Danny and then save it. So that's it. So in there's 2 minutes, assuming the environment is ready to go, I was able to add a user called Danny to a security group. And I was able to go into the admin dashboard and assign a desktop to Danny. So the next thing I'm going to show you is how Danny logs in for the first time and what the experience looks like. So to do that, I'm going to minimize this server environment and pull up a browser.
So Peter, we got a question that just came in, and it's pretty relevant to what's going on right now in the presentation.
Sure. Go for it.
It's so to confirm, step 1 is to install the app on the domain controller.
Can you answer that? Ask the question again.
So step 1 is to install the app on the domain controller. I think he's referring to the Sentry installation on the domain controller or server.
Yes. So if you were doing a brand new implementation, the first step is to actually install the Sentry software into the domain controller. And to kind of make that point, let me quickly bring up, since we have enough time, I'm going to pull up the architecture again and use that for effect. So if you can see the screen, and I think we have enough time. So let me quickly explain how this works. So there's this section right here. This is the customer premise. And this software you see in that little red rectangle over there is essentially software that I showed you on that server. So that needs to be installed on the customer network. Okay. So what I'm about to show you next, I'm going to show you using my PC as the end user on the left. And I'll be logging in as Danny J for the first time. And you'll see me do my multi-factor authentication. And I will install the secure connector and I'll be able to connect. So while we're talking about it, the way the connection works is this. Basically, this Sentry software makes a reverse proxy into the Cloud Shield. And when I log in from my laptop, I'll be connecting to the Cloud Shield. So the Cloud Shield actually acts as the air gap between the end user and the remote network, so that the end user never actually sees the office network until authentication is done in the cloud. So all these technologies that you see in the middle there will be employed. So basically, during the login, end-to-end encryption is done, Active Directory Shield, multi-factor, threat detection, all those things are employed. And that's what I'm about to show you right now. Does that help, Brandon?
Yeah, that helps. And I do want to add in too that every one of these rings in our Cloud Shield here is definitely stuff that helps with zero trust compliance.
Exactly. So going back, I'm now going to log into the portal as Danny J for the first time. So I'm logging as Danny J at easyrds.com. And please keep your questions coming. The demos. So for the first time, the system knows that Danny's never logged in before. So it's going to ask for Danny's Active Directory login password. I'm going to type that in.
I got another question too, Peter, whenever you're ready.
Go for it.
Any impact if there is a firewall in the network, i.e. any special settings needed on the firewall?
Not at all. That's the beauty of our software. It doesn't require you to change anything on your firewall, your physical firewall or your Windows firewall. Once you enable remote desktop on the computer, that automatically configures the firewall for you. So right now, I'm logging in as Danny J for the first time. The system realized that I've never logged in before. So it's asking me to set up my multi-factor, which is one of the security features that we have. Jason mentioned this earlier. There is no way to bypass our multi-factor. It's just built in. And this is all part of Zero Trust. Because by doing this, we're actually asking Danny to prove beyond the login and password, we're asking Danny to also show that he's a true person. And to do that, we're asking Danny to type a security code, right, which I'm going to do right now. Which for the numbers to change. Okay, 399. Once I type the code, it asks me for my cell phone. I'm going to put my cell phone there. And this is to validate that I actually own the phone. And this also allows me in the future, if I change my phone and I keep my number, I can actually reconfigure my token myself. So I just got a code, I'm going to put it in. And this is the desktop that was given to me. I can go ahead and click the desktop and connect, but we recommend that people use what we call our Windows Connector software, which I'm going to install right now. It's a simple download. I'm going to save it. Once I click it, it doesn't really require any major installation. It uses a technology called Click Once, and I've already installed it. I'm going to put it over here. So now I'm going to log in as Danny J and try to connect to the remote desktop that was given to me.
Peter, we had another question that came in, and I can handle this one. What different MFA methods can be used, i.e. Duo, Microsoft, Authn, Anvil, etc.? You can use any of those soft tokens. If you use ours, though, it'll give you single sign-on to accounts and also give you push authentication.
Yeah. So to add to what Brandon just said, if the implication of the question is on the back end, multi-factor is already included for you. So there's nothing you have to do. In terms of the soft token, though, the software that you put on your phone, you can use anyone. You can use Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, ours if you want push technology. And so it doesn't really matter what you use. So bring it on, and then you can use it to actually scan the code and log in right here. So here I am, logging as Danny J. You can see the login is right there, and this is the machine that was given to me. So I'm going to go ahead right now and click on the machine. This is only one time. Once I agree, the connection will start momentarily. And here we go. And everything I'm showing you right now, there is no firewall open on the back end in the company environment. This is all done using Zero Trust technology, where the central software is able to actually reach out into the cloud to maintain its connection and employ and validate all of the security principles that we talked about: multi-factor authentication, blocking Active Directory, shield to making sure that nobody can brute force Active Directory, employing multi-factor, a lot of threat detection, and also hiding the customer firewall. And here we are in the desktop. So one other, go ahead.
I had another question, Peter.
Go for it.
So it says, do you need admin rights to install TruGrid on the user laptop? The question is no. What would end up happening is the end user, they would go to log in, they would go to TruGrid.net, they would log in with their Active Directory credentials, and then they would put them through the process to get set up with TruGrid, as far as what Peter went through with setting up the MFA, scanning the QR code, putting in your phone number, and getting everything set up. And we do offer step-by-step instructions for that, including once you get onto the dashboard as an end user, it does give you the next step to download the Chrome browser, and then the next step after that to download the connector for the laptop. The connectors are available for Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android, and we are compatible with Chromebooks now as well for the most part.
Exactly. So you can use any of the popular devices to connect to us. So now that I've logged in as Danny, one other thing I want to show you, for those on the call who are very tech savvy, they know that, if you do the IP configuration on that machine, you could see the IP address of the remote network. So if I actually come in here to my local laptop here, which I'm connecting from, and I can actually verify the IP address there as well. And you can see that it wouldn't match what you see remotely, which essentially tells you there's no VPN connection between the two. So there's no line of sight. And I want to show you one other thing. So let me pull this up. So if I do IP config here, so I can see this. If you look at this IP scheme, 192 dots and 172 dots, they don't jive in any way with the remote. So there's no line of sight. One other thing I want to show you is, in terms of the zero trust that we talk about, one of the things that a lot of our partners have asked for during this COVID-19 situation is how to make sure that even when I'm logged in from my remote machine, I cannot see any drive. So we've configured this environment using that zero trust principle. As you can see, I open this PC and there's no drives in there. Okay. In fact, we even disable copy and paste. Again, this is all optional stuff, right?
Yeah,
so
Peter, actually, we had a couple questions come in that you're about to dive into, so I'm just going to read them to you because it looks like you're about to cover them anyway, so make sure you handle them. Does RDP scale to multiple monitors? Does it still support printer redirection and all the regular RDP features? And another one that was relevant to that was, are you able to use local printers, USB and multi-monitors like an RDP? And I do have another question after that.
You can do all those things as long as your company wants you to use them. For the purpose of your demonstration, we disable all of it, just to show you how airtight we can make that remote connection, meaning that even though I'm logged into it, I can be prevented from doing even copy and paste. So if I actually open up Notepad over here, and I type something, let me open Notepad locally. As well. So in a normal remote desktop environment, I should be able to type something here. And I should be able to copy it and paste it in the remote session. See, it's disabled. I cannot paste.
And then the next question was, what Microsoft CALs are needed on the client end?
If you're connecting to a Windows 10 or Windows 7 or Windows 8 machine in your office, you don't need any Microsoft CAL at all. The only time you need a CAL is if you're connecting to a server, a terminal server, or remote desktop services, and you're going to have more than 2 users. Microsoft does require you to license those users that will be connected.
Yeah, and then as far as the multi-monitor, when we have settings on our dashboard that you can go in and turn on multi-monitor,
Yes.
but you're not limited to that. We actually have step-by-step policy procedures and stuff to go through and help you set that stuff up. If you need help getting it set up on your end, we do have some documentation on that for you.
And I'm showing that right now. So this is Danny J logged in. So if I go into settings on that web page, I can see my MultiMonitor setting. I can go in and enable full screen and all displays. I can set my color and also my resolution. So yeah, you could do those things yourself. And we're also exposing all the RDP features for those who want to do recording over the RDP connection. Ultimately, though, the company can determine what you can and cannot do using Microsoft Group policies.
Hey,
Yes.
Peter, while we're in here, do you want to show how you can add different users to different user groups and assign machines and stuff?
Well, that would be on the admin side. So we wanted to make sure there's enough time for this presentation. So we kind of went through the features very quickly. But since we have enough time, let me kind of bring up the environment to see if I can show you. So I think this is what you were referring to. So this is the backend environment right now. I'm logged in as the admin. So if you have a situation where you have terminal server, and you can create different security groups over here. So here's a situation where, like a doctors group, and you can select all the machines they need to have access to, and you can select all the users that have to have access to them. In this case, I just added Danny J.
Hey, Peter, I'm going to let Josh Lieberman jump on real quick. He's got a webinar, and he had a couple things he wanted to say.
Fantastic.
Hey, Josh.
Did you allow him to talk?
I did. I allowed him to talk.
Okay.
All right, I'm here. You guys hear me?
We can hear
you. Can hear you.
Hi,
Thanks
Josh.
for joining, Josh.
Hey, Peter. and hi to everybody else there on the call. I'm just going to step in for a minute and let you know that when we adopted this product in January, I put off playing with it for about a month. I decided, well, I didn't believe it could be as good as it was claimed to be. When we started to dabble with it early in February, at about the 10th of February, I realized this is more than a dabble. We need this. And about a week later, I realized we needed it now. So we dove in and we spent a few days toying with it and trying to break it and figuring out where the limits were, where it was rough and where it was smooth. I've got to say that we now have maybe a third of our sites or seats working remotely across at least a dozen and a half different domains. And it was a real lifesaver for these companies. And for us, we got to the point where the install from the back end to the front users is 30 or 40 minutes. And each user, more than half of them can now follow our one page, 10-step procedure and install it on their own. And these are people that point to the flat panel and call it the hard drive. They're actually successfully installing this 2FA and the end client. So it's been really, really successful for us. I want to stress that I know it's still a work in progress in sense of getting reporting up to snuff and improving that. And you guys have made dramatic improvements as you've gone. But even knowing that it's a relatively nascent product, it's been rock solid and the support's been outstanding. And I can only say that if we weren't doing this, we would be fighting a lot more problems trying to fight the problems caused by SSL VPN connectivity. So this really saved multiple client asses, pardon my French. So anyway, I'm a happy user.
Thank you, Josh. We appreciate the feedback.
Hey, Peter, I got somebody else that wants to jump in too. It's a Ray Jimenez.
Oh, go for it.
So I allowed him to talk, and let me see. Okay.
We have lots of questions. It's a good thing we made time for Q&A actually.
Well, Ray, if you wanted to jump in, you had your hand raised.
Only to chat. I'm good. Thank you. This has been very helpful. I have no comments at this point. Everything looks really good. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Fantastic. Thank you.
And then, Peter, I do have a couple more questions. How do you manage if the remote user has 24-hour operation and there are logically 3 times different users logging into the same desktop remotely? This is for a remote branch office situation.
Yeah, so typically we conform to all Microsoft security requirements. As you very well know, in a Windows 10 environment, only one person can log in at a time. So you can actually assign the same desktop to 3 or 4 or 5 individuals. The difference is only one person can log in at a time, right? So if there are 3 shifts, the first person can log into the same PC during their shift. And then when they get off and then the next person logs in, that next person will be able to log in as well. Even if the prior person did not log off, our system using the RDP will actually ask the question. It will say, somebody's already logged into this machine. Do you want to log them off? And you can say yes, and it will let you log in and keep their session in what they call, I would say, switching mode. Kind of switches them around. You can log in and do your work, and then when the third person comes, they can do the same thing. So we can now allow multi-session in that regard.
And then another question. So to confirm, the RDP port 3389 does not need to be opened on the firewall device at the business network, yes, meaning that standard ports 80 and 443 is sufficient to be open.
Exactly. So in other words, to use our technology on your firewall, everything should remain closed, even 443. We don't need any port to be open at all, inbound, okay? Obviously, you have outbound port open for browsing reason. People want to go to the internet, they want to go to HTTPS website. We kind of support all that. So the Sentry software that we showed over there only requires 443. So this Sentry technology on the right over there does require 443 open out so that it can talk to the Cloud Shield. That's about all we need. So 3389 on the PC that you want to connect to is all you need. All firewall ports at the edge remain closed in terms of inbound. Yep.
I got one more. Any minimal bandwidth requirements, impact on performance?
Yeah, so bandwidth is always something, the more you have, the better, because it's the nature of remote desktop connection. So we always recommend at least 100K for each connection. When I say that, the latency is also very important, meaning that if you're using satellite, and this has nothing to do with TruGrid, this is just normal RDP connectivity. If you're using satellite, your experience will be not as good because there's a high latency between the satellite in the skies and the world here down here. So we recommend DSL, Comcast type, Time Warner type connection. So if you have 100K or more, you should be able to have good experience.
All right, so Peter, we have a Joe Jensen that has his hand raised. Hey, Joe, you want to jump in?
This is Joe from OCIT. Just wanted to shout out and just let everyone know we started doing this thing back in February, and I also had left it alone for a long time. It just kind of came to mind when this COVID-19 came about, and boy, was it a very, very useful thing. And the best part of this whole thing was support has been phenomenal. It's just an amazing invested people. We support is very, very important to us with any product we do. So I wanted to give you guys a shout out and thank you for being there and helping us through. It's been a breeze now. We set people up in minutes, and they're all happy and very secure means of communication with their office network.
Joe, that means a lot to us.
I miss a lot to us.
Hey, Brandon. I'm sorry. There's one more question. I don't know if you noticed it in the chat. Okay, perfect.
So the next question, Peter, is, so to confirm I'm following properly, after installing the software package on the DC, adding the local users and computers to the security group is how you make them appear in the cloud for assignment. Exactly.
That's how you do it. And by the way, we welcome you when you sign up to go to a live chat and request onboarding. Onboarding is, we can provide to you. Our service provider partners, they know if they want to do 2-3 onboarding with us, we're here to support them. So yeah, essentially, that's all you have to do. Just install the Sentry software, you create those security groups, you populate the groups with computers and users, go to the cloud dashboard, you refresh the screen, and you can start assigning desktops. It is that simple. What I wanted to say, somebody mentioned earlier about support. Jason's on the call. Jason, we thank you for what you're doing for our partners. I think a live chat is actually very responsive. So I myself did not realize how live chat could be very useful for support. It's actually faster to use a live chat than to call into the telephone number. So usually when you go in that chat line and make a request, in less than 5 minutes, somebody's already providing services to you. Go ahead, Brandon.
Jennifer had a question that showed up in the chat.
It's in the Q&A now. Somebody noticed that we have an inactivity timer, and can they adjust that inactivity time?
Well, the good thing is the inactivity timer is only for the web portion. So we recommend that people use a native desktop. The native apps, whether on Macintosh or Windows, those do not have any timeout. And the reason why we have a timeout on the web page is for security. If somebody were to go to a public kiosk, for example, to use our software, we don't want them to be signed on and all of a sudden they walked away by mistake and people are able to connect to their machines. So as a security-minded organization, we figured that 15 minutes should be a reasonable time for an environment to be timed out. But if it's something that people have to have, if they prefer to use the web, we're definitely open to looking into it. In fact, I think some customers already put in a request to make that configurable. And so we already have it on our roadmap to have different customers and service providers be able to configure how long the timeout is going to be for their customers. I think another question just came in.
Yeah, we got a couple more. So one's, will this work on non-AD environments? I'll let you grab that one, Peter.
Yeah, so the technology, as you saw in what I'm showing on the screen, does require Active Directory. It does, because you have to have a trust directory, okay? However, we have a lot of service providers that have customers that do not have Active Directory. They have workgroup computers. So the way we've supported them is we've allowed the service provider to have an AD that's completely separate from the customer. So the service provider can now provide AD services to their own customers. So that's kind of how we handle that.
So I want to jump in for 1 second. I'm sorry. This is Jennifer. I know that we're going a little beyond our half hour. So if anybody wants a copy of this recording, please email Jen@TruGrid.com and we'll go ahead and send that if you need to jump off now so that you can get the full recording. And then also before we end, I just wanted to let everybody know we really appreciate you being on this call. And if anybody would like to sign up for TruGrid, you can start with a 15-day free trial. And you can also get information on that by emailing Jen at TruGrid. Sorry about that, Peter. I just wanted to be aware of time.
It's okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
The next question, Peter, is I have 2 domain controllers in my environment that replicate each other. Do I need to install software on both?
You don't have to. We recommend you do for redundancy. So in other words, you only need one instance of Sentry, but like everything, anything can happen to a server. So if you want to ensure, like I would say, uninterrupted continuity, we recommend you install Sentry on both of them. Yeah.
And then the next one is, can it be used with Azure AD?
That is upcoming. We're working very hard to support Azure AD. That's, you know, a lot of people have requested that feature, and we're working very hard to support it. Yeah.
All right.
Is that it then?
For right now, does anybody else have any questions they want answered? We got time.
So I do, while we're waiting on that, I want to thank everyone for joining and making time today. Like Jennifer said, we're going to send a copy of this recording out to everyone that attended today. And what I want to say is, you know, if you're struggling with VPN security today and having to install it on employee home computers that you don't own or you don't trust, this is a technology for you. It can be implemented very quickly, within 20 minutes or less. Thank you so much.
Hey, Peter, we did have another question. I'd love to see more of the management portal. It looked pretty simple on the screen share, but I presume multiple clients will fill up those drop downs pretty quickly.
Yeah, so let me see if it hasn't time now. This is I just brought it up again. So we have, for service providers, we have a customer management section here. So if you click on here, you can go to client domains. So you can actually manage multiple clients separately. So the section I showed you was more for the service provider. So to answer your question, yeah, we cannot thought through that. So you essentially don't have to have all customers in one section. So for this particular environment, I'm going to click on that customer, choose the workspace. Now you can see a different set of machines. I have 5 machines here for this customer, and the customer name is shown on the top right. So it's completely separate. And whereas if I go back to the company, I have 4 different machines. While we're at it, since somebody asked a question about support for non-AD environment, so this configuration actually has that. If you recall, when I open up Active Directory under the computer screen over here, I only have 3 computers. But then when I come to the dashboard, I have 4. So take a look at it. The IP address of this one called PC01 is actually different from the other 3. This is an example of supporting what we consider a hybrid or multi-cloud environment. In this particular case, this piece that you're seeing is in a work group. So we have a subset of our Sentry software called Secure Connect. You can install that on any computer wherever they are, and anywhere in the world. And with a unique code that is for your company, you can add a machine to this dashboard and assign it to anybody else. So since somebody asked a question, I thought I'll share it with you.
All right, so Peter, then does it need to be installed on a DC or just a server that has AD roles added?
It just needs to be installed on a member server. Domain controller is fine. Member server is okay, as long as it's joined to domain controller. That is the Sentry portion. The
Excellent.
Windows connector and the Mac connector can be installed anywhere.
Does the TruGrid Cloud component have all the necessary compliance standards, e.g. HIPAA, SOC, et cetera, et cetera?
Yes, it does. And if you go to our webpage /security, TruGrid.com/security, you scroll down to the very bottom, it shows you all of the compliance details that we support right there, as you can see on my screen.
All right, next question. Can you not connect to a workstation but get access to mapped server drives as you can with a VPN?
No, and we actually don't recommend that, because if you kind of think about it, if you allow a remote computer over VPN to map to a drive, you're essentially introducing the kind of compromise that we were talking about that we think people should avoid. Nowadays, most people are using cloud file share like OneDrive and Dropbox. So we recommend that if you're going to provide file share access, you're better off giving them access to a PC that's in that secure environment in your office than to be sharing file across the network. We cannot do it, but we actually don't recommend it. Now, another way is if you're doing remote desktop and your company supports that, they can allow you to map local drive into the session, but we also don't recommend that. So every company can implement that the way they like, but if you want to follow full zero trust, we recommend you don't allow the remote machine from home to have any direct access to company resources. You want them to go into that secure environment, into a PC that's securing that Windows environment or that network and do all that work there.
All right, next question. Do you recommend setting up an AD domain specifically for customers without AD to use, or do you recommend adding those customers to the service provider's AD and add multiple UPNs for the customers?
It depends on your use case. So if it's going to be an expensive proposition to provide Active Directory for every customer, then don't do it. A single Active Directory that the service provider manages is good enough. We have one partner out of Canada that supports about 10 different customers on a single AD. He doesn't have any problem with it. So those customers, in his own case, most of his customers are very small, 10 computers or so, and it will be too expensive for him to install AD for each of them. So he set up a single AD in his own office, and that's how he manages all of them. So you don't have to go through all that difficult work.
And then able to work on Macs as the remote workstation,
Yes.
remoting from. Actually,
Yes.
Jason, you want to jump in? You're the Mac guy.
Yeah, I use a Mac myself, so we have a Mac desktop connector, just like the Windows desktop connector that Peter showed. It works well.
That is true.
You could just install that, log into it. Once you've logged into the website the first time and set up your MFA, then you can log into any of the desktop connectors. You never have to log back into the website to launch your desktops, even on the Mac.
On top of that, we also have, if you can still see my screen, we have support for iPad, if you want to use iPad to connect, or even iPhone. And we also do have the same for Android and Chromebooks as well.
Yep. Next question. Do TruGrid settings in the cloud just adjust GPOs for RDP for the on-premise environment, i.e. disable copy paste, aka does the Sentry get the settings from the cloud and then adjust GPOs for RDP on the DC?
Nice question. So we don't do that. So what we recommend is the settings that we provide on the web page actually customizes the RDP on the remote machine that you're connecting from. So you know how sometimes RDP can have drive mappings allowed, audio allowed, file, copy and paste allowed. We can disable all that for you from the front end. However, to actually maintain what I would consider a well-managed, guaranteed way of trust, you want to do an Active Directory. So that's the recommendation. So our settings on the web page would take care of the end user part where the admin can set the policies, but for guaranteed policy enforcement, we recommend use Active Directory services.
Next question, are Chromebooks officially supported now?
Not officially. Jason, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, surprisingly, we found out many customers needed to rapidly, get people set up to work from home, and they were deploying Chromebooks. And some customers informed us, we were asking them, well, what Chromebooks did you use? And they told us the models, and they've been downloading, for those models that support downloading apps from the Android App Store, they would download the TruGrid Connector app from that Google Play Store and install them onto those Chromebooks, and that seems to work well. And we've started to test that out, and it seems to perform pretty well. And if anyone needs that information about what type of Chromebooks, just hit us up on live chat, and we can send that to you.
Yeah, so we got the polls in too. I thought I'd just share that with everybody. The first question was, do you know what zero trust is? Multiple choice, yes or no. 41% yes, 59% no. So I hope that we helped answer a little bit of that today, and especially help, with letting you guys know how TruGrid can help with zero trust. But I'm hoping by the end of this that everybody has a little better understanding. The next one is, do you currently use remote desktop RDP over VPN? 70% yes.
Okay.
No.
That's a very common use of VPN. I think, did another question come in?
It's a chat. Yep, another question. Sorry, you might have covered this, came in late. What about reporting to connection/use? I think these have an activity report.
Yeah, so we currently have activity report, which Josh had mentioned earlier. So our partners have asked us to enhance that to include more information. Currently, the activity report will track every login, success, and failure. It doesn't track what happens inside Active Directory because Windows Event Log already has those things. But our partners and customers have told us they'd like to also track that too. Maybe Jesse, you want to kind of speak on that?
Yeah, that is something we're working on enhancing. And then there is also a tool we can recommend to you. I think there is some cost. It's nothing related to us, but a third-party tool that has some pretty good reporting from Active Directory, from Event Viewer. But yeah, some of that information will be a bit tricky because it's on the individual machine's Event Viewer logs, but we are trying to incorporate as much as we can to extend the current activity report that you can download. You can download currently an activity report for your own domain and for customer domains individually from the portal.
And let me add one more thing that we kind of skipped over. One of the reasons why it's very simple and very fast to configure an environment is you don't have to install, in an Active Directory environment, you don't have to install any agent on any of the pieces you want to connect to. So the Sentry server or servers will act as a broker for them because the RDP already exists on those machines, you can just connect. So now in the workgroup environment where there's no Active Directory, you have to install that Secure Connect. But I think so one of the things we're looking at is, as a company, is to provide more extensive reporting. We're gonna have to figure out how to have the Sentry be able to grab event log data from the pieces in the domain. It's something that we've been told that people want, and we're actually working on it.
I think all the questions are covered for right now. If anybody else has any last minute questions or a few more questions, we're probably open for the next 13 minutes, I'm guessing.
Thank you very much, everyone. We set this for a 30-minute webinar where it's about 47 minutes into the session. So we appreciate all of you for making time for this. Somebody just asked a question about support. Support is, live chat is from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Central Time. However, for urgent system down issues where you need assistance to help you up and running, that's 24/7. And if you go to our main webpage at the very bottom of the site, you see our toll-free number there. However, if you truly want very quick support during support hours, which is from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., we encourage you to use live chat. It is much faster than calling our toll-free number.
Yeah, and you can always feel free to reach out to any of the account executives to help you get support too. Sometimes it's stuff that we can take care of for you. Just reach out any way you can. We'll get you taken care of.
Yeah. Somebody's asking for sales materials. Can you email Jen at TruGrid.com, TruGrid.com, and Jennifer will send you all the information you need.
Yeah, I got a bunch of stuff that I can get out to.
Okay, good. One other thing, if the questions come up after this call that we haven't answered, just feel free to go to our main page, click on the live chat and ask your question, or you can email Jen at TruGrid.com. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for making that day. We appreciate you giving us 50 minutes of your time today. And stay safe, everybody.